Toxic people aren't crashing your life by accident. Your unconscious mind's rolling out the red carpet for them. That string of soul-crushing partners, backstabbing friends, or energy vampire bosses. It's not random. It's a script your shadow wrote before you knew it. Wondering reasons why you attract toxic people? Carl Jung cracked this code, and the answer's not out there. It's inside you, not because you're broken, but because your brain's hooked on familiar pain. If you don't get the shadow work psychology, you're stuck in toxic relationships forever, drained and unhappy. What if those jerks are just mirrors of the Carl Jung shadow you've buried? In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you how to decode this trap, heal childhood trauma, and break toxic patterns for good. This isn't blame, it's power. Your shadow's got the map, and I'm handing you the flashlight. Let's dive in. Ever wonder why toxic people keep showing up in your life? Carl Jung figured it out, and it's not about them, it's about you. You're not broken. You're not cursed. You're attracting what's hiding inside you. That's the truth behind toxic relationships. Think of your mind like an iceberg. The small part above water is your conscious self. What you know, what you show, but the massive part underwater, that's your Carl Jung shadow. It's everything you've pushed down, everything you've learned to hide. This is the foundation of shadow work psychology. Carl Jung discovered that we bury the parts of ourselves we think are unacceptable. Not bad parts, just rejected parts. Maybe you were told, don't be angry or don't be needy, so you stuffed those traits deep into your shadow. Listen up, they didn't disappear. They started controlling you from the dark. By age 7, you already knew what parts of you were lovable and what had to go. Those disowned pieces didn't vanish. They became your shadow. And here's the kicker. Your shadow shows up in who you attract. That's one of the biggest reasons why you attract toxic people. Your shadow works through projection, like a movie projector. It casts hidden traits onto others. That's why some toxic people trigger you more than they trigger others. It's not random. It's your unconscious reflecting back at you. Key point, your strongest reactions are clues. If someone makes your blood boil, ask yourself, what part of me are they mirroring? This is shadow work psychology in real time. When you hate someone for being selfish, is it because you were never allowed to put yourself first? So your shadow reacts with intensity. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Nowhere is that truer than in romantic toxic relationships. That magnetic pull, that chemistry, often it's your shadow recognizing itself in someone else. It's not love, it's a loop. Your mind unconsciously chooses people who reflect your unhealed parts. Here it comes. Your toxic relationships are not punishments. They're signs. They're invitations to do the real self-help work. You're being called to heal childhood trauma, to break toxic patterns, to reclaim the parts of you you've buried. This is the power of Jungian psychology. This is how you change your life. Step 1, own your shadow. Stop blaming. Start noticing. Because the more you see your own shadow, the less it controls you. Self-help isn't about fixing who you are. It's about becoming whole again. And when you become whole, you stop repeating the pain. You attract peace. You attract clarity. And finally, you attract people who reflect your healed self. Let's go deeper. Your earliest relationships shaped how you connect with people today, even the toxic ones. Before you could talk, your brain was already learning how love and connection work. These early experiences, usually with your parents or caregivers, formed a pattern in your nervous system. That pattern still influences the kinds of people you're drawn to. Here's something important. Your brain doesn't care if a relationship is healthy. It just wants what feels familiar. That's why toxic relationships can sometimes feel normal. They remind your body of childhood. For example, if you grew up with an unpredictable parent, you might feel strangely at home with unpredictable partners. You're not choosing toxic people on purpose. Your brain is following old wiring. This is where Carl Jung's shadow comes in. Shadow work psychology helps us understand why this happens. The parts of you that were rejected or ignored as a child got pushed into your shadow. These hidden wounds now show up in your adult relationships. And trauma doesn't have to be dramatic. Even small things, like being emotionally ignored, can shape your attachment style. Your unconscious mind stored everything, and those old hurts are a big reason why you attract toxic people. That's also why you might know someone is bad for you, but still feel drawn to them. Your head says run, but your body says this feels familiar. That's the conflict between your adult awareness and your childhood blueprint. Many toxic relationships mirror old wounds. If you didn't get enough love or validation as a kid, you might chase people who withhold it. It's your mind trying to replay and fix the past. These toxic people often reflect how you feel deep down. If you were made to feel not enough, you'll be drawn to those who make you feel that way again. Your shadow is trying to confirm the beliefs it already holds. But here's the good news. Once you see the pattern, you can change it. Shadow work psychology helps you bring these hidden patterns to light. Most people think they just have bad luck in love, but it's not luck. It's an unconscious blueprint that can be rewritten. This doesn't mean blaming your parents. They were likely repeating patterns from their own past, possibly from their own Carl Jung shadow. Healing starts with compassion and with awareness. To break toxic patterns, you have to understand how your past shaped your present. It's not your fault, but it is your power. With Jungian psychology and self-help tools, you can heal childhood trauma, reclaim your worth, and stop attracting toxic relationships for good. Your Carl Jung shadow leaves clues everywhere, like fingerprints at a crime scene. Want to find them? Watch your emotional reactions. If the same kind of toxic people keep triggering you, that's your shadow saying, "Look here." This is a big insight from shadow work psychology. These patterns stick around because they're asking to be seen. Think of your shadow like a magnet. Key point: it attracts people who match its energy. If you keep meeting similar difficult personalities, chances are your Carl Jung shadow is doing the attracting. It's pulling in drama you never consciously asked for. Pay attention to strong gut reactions, especially to people you've just met. These snap judgments often reveal shadow material. For example, if you instantly think, "She's so fake," it might be your shadow spotting something in her that you rejected in yourself. That's a powerful clue into your toxic relationship patterns. Your words can also uncover your shadow. When you say things like, "I'd never be like that," or "I could never do that," you're probably pointing to a part of yourself you've disowned. The stronger the denial, the more important it is to look closer. This is a helpful self-help psychology trick for understanding why you attract toxic people who reflect those traits. The things that annoy you most in others often reflect parts of yourself that need healing. For example, if a friend's neediness drives you crazy, it might point to your own hidden vulnerability. That's your shadow activating, and a sign it's time to heal childhood trauma. Your relationship patterns also show what your shadow's up to. The same type of partner over and over, even the unhealthy ones, those qualities often represent parts of you that want to be seen. These toxic relationships are like puzzle pieces trying to make you whole again. This is a core lesson in Jungian psychology. If you ever think, "Why does this keep happening to me?" Here it comes. Your Carl Jung shadow is likely repeating the pattern. Your unconscious keeps creating similar situations until you learn the lesson. It's like life handing you the same test until you pass. That's your chance to break toxic patterns with self-awareness. Even your body gives shadow signals. Ever notice your heart race, stomach tighten, or face flush around certain toxic people? That's your body recognizing shadow material before your mind does. It's your built-in alarm system, a key tool in self-help psychology. And don't forget dreams. People who disturb you in dreams often represent rejected parts of yourself. Writing dreams down can help uncover hidden patterns and support your work to heal childhood trauma. It's one more layer of shadow work psychology. Once you know what to look for, the signs are everywhere. Toxic relationships become mirrors, reflecting back your inner world. The more you notice, the closer you get to lasting change. Use Jungian psychology to bring light to what's been hidden, and finally break toxic pattern for good. Self-rejection is a magnet for toxic relationships. The parts of yourself you push away become magnets for people who mirror them. Your Carl Jung shadow doesn't just disappear. It finds a way to express itself, often to the toxic people you attract. When you judge yourself harshly, life reflects that judgment back. If you're critical of yourself, you'll often attract people who criticize you too. This isn't just bad luck. It's your inner world shaping your outer relationships. Jungian psychology calls this shadow projection. The qualities you reject in yourself don't go away. They show up in others. If you ignore your own needs, you may attract people who are overly needy. If you repress your anger, you may end up with angry partners. Your Carl Jung shadow keeps these patterns going until you finally face them. Toxic relationships mirror your relationship with yourself. That partner who disappears when you need them, that might reflect how you abandon yourself. The friend who puts you down, they may echo your own inner critic. This is shadow work psychology in real life, revealing why these patterns keep repeating. Your unconscious is always searching for wholeness. When you reject certain traits, you'll be drawn to people who act them out. That's why opposites attract, because each person carries something the other is missing. It's a classic insight from Jungian psychology and a big reason why you attract toxic people. Self-rejection creates a vacuum. If you secretly believe you're unworthy, you'll attract people who treat you that way. Your toxic relationships are like mirrors, showing you how you really see yourself. That's where self-help work begins, by changing the inner script. Ever feel intense chemistry with someone who turns out to be toxic? That strong pull might not be fate. It might be your shadow recognizing itself. What feels magnetic is often familiar pain from childhood, repeating until you wake up to it. That's the emotional charge of unresolved trauma. Healing starts when you reclaim the parts of yourself you've abandoned. The qualities you dislike most in yourself are the ones that need the most love. This is a heart of shadow work psychology. Learning to accept what you once rejected. When you stop rejecting yourself, you stop attracting people who reflect that rejection. Self-acceptance is the most powerful way to break toxic patterns. Once you love all of you, toxic people lose their grip on your life, for good. Shadow work psychology sounds deep, but it starts with something simple: awareness. Begin by noticing your emotional triggers. Keep a journal. Every time someone toxic gets under your skin, write it down. These strong reactions often point straight to your Carl Jung shadow and reveal hidden reasons why you keep attracting toxic people. Use the mirror technique. Next time someone triggers you, ask, "Where does this live in me?" This simple question reveals what you're projecting onto others. If you feel instant resistance to the idea, that's actually a sign you're right where the healing begins. This is one of Jungian psychology's most powerful tools for breaking toxic patterns. Your dreams hold secret clues. Keep a notebook by your bed. Write down your dreams as soon as you wake up. Dreams speak in symbols, bypassing your conscious mind, and often reveal shadow material tied to childhood trauma and toxic relationships you didn't know were still running the show. Try writing to your shadow. Choose a part of yourself you rejected, like anger or vulnerability. Ask it questions on paper, then answer as that part. This simple self-help practice gives insight into how these disowned parts show up in your toxic relationships. Make space for the parts of you you've ignored. If you've buried your playfulness, schedule time for fun. If you've silenced your voice, speak your truth in small, safe ways. The more you express these qualities consciously, the less they run your life unconsciously, especially when it comes to who you attract. Your body holds shadow too. Movement, breath work, or even dancing can help release stored emotions. These patterns don't just live in your head. They're wired into your nervous system. That's why physical practices are key to healing childhood trauma and shifting your connection to toxic people. Consider working with a therapist or coach who understands shadow work. Some wounds go deep and need a safe, supportive space to heal. A pro can help you explore the emotions behind your toxic patterns without getting overwhelmed. Shadow work is a journey, not a quick fix. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. As you begin to accept the parts of yourself you once pushed away, your toxic relationships start to change. You attract differently when you feel differently inside. Start small, just 5 minutes a day. Ask yourself, what triggered me today? What might that say about me? This daily reflection builds self-awareness. Over time, it rewires your patterns. Your Carl Jung shadow doesn't need perfection, just consistent attention. to begin transforming your relationships from the inside out. You now see toxic relationships aren't random. They're patterns tied to your unconscious mind, revealing parts of yourself needing healing through your Carl Jung shadow. By engaging your shadow with shadow work psychology, you reshape relationship patterns from within. The toxic people you attract shift as you embrace disowned traits. Your outer world mirrors your inner growth, a real self-help win. This isn't about blame, it's empowerment. You're not drawn to toxic people because you're flawed. These toxic relationships guide you toward wholeness, one of the deepest reasons why you attract toxic people. Pain fuels growth when you use Jungian psychology. Integrating your Carl Jung shadow attracts healthier connections. You rely less on others to embody what you've rejected, growing discerning without needing completion, a huge step to break toxic patterns. This work transforms all toxic relationships, romantic, familial, professional. As projections fade, your entire relational world shifts. Thanks to self-help psychology and shadow work, you're not broken, you're awakening. These patterns teach you. The toxic relationships that hurt most can heal childhood trauma deepest through the shadow lens. Pure Jungian psychology magic. Your journey to wholeness breaks centuries-old family patterns, rippling through time, healing childhood trauma for past and future. A powerful way to break toxic patterns for good. If this flipped a switch for you, share it with someone stuck in that toxic relationships loop. It's as easy as hitting the share button, and you could change their life. Shadow work psychology ripples out, healing childhood trauma beyond just you. Start your shadow journal tonight. Just grab a pen and jot one thought about toxic people in your life. It takes 1 minute, but it's the first step to real relationships, self-help in action. Your future self is already cheering. Ready for more shadow work psychology and healing childhood trauma? Tap that red button below. It's one click to join our diving deeper into Jungian psychology together. Drop a quick comment. Which part hit you hardest? Toxic relationships or shadow clues? It takes 2 seconds, and your words might light up someone else's path to break toxic patterns. The reasons why you attract toxic people end with you. One tiny move rewrites it all with Carl Jung's shadow work. Let's start now.